Before the world knew the story of David and Goliath, a shocking truth was already unfolding. One man chosen by God, another consumed by fear, and a battle that would forever change the destiny of Israel. Imagine the scene. A towering giant, armored in bronze, his voice echoing like thunder, paralyzing a nation for 40 days. Around him, warriors trembled. But in the quiet hills of Bethlehem, a forgotten shepherd boy was being prepared for a moment that would shake history. Why did God choose the weakest to confront the strongest? Why has this ancient battle remained the symbol of faith overcoming fear for thousands of years? And what secrets about courage, obedience, and divine power have been hidden from us for generations? In this video, you will discover not just the story of David and Goliath, but the hidden keys of why giants rise in every age, why fear enslaves nations, and how faith, small as a stone, still brings them down. You will see how this single encounter between a shepherd and a warrior carried lessons for kings, prophets, and even for us today. How to face addiction, failure, betrayal, or despair. Comment below, what giant are you facing in your own life right now? Because the truth is, your story may carry the same power as David's. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear is not just history. It is your hope, your battle, and your victory. David the shepherd, the forgotten but chosen one. From the rolling fields of Bethlehem came a boy no one celebrated, a boy whose own father left him in the shadows while his brothers were paraded before the prophet. He smelled of sheep, his hands were rough from the stones he gathered, his songs were known only to the hills. Yet it was this boy, overlooked, underestimated, unseen, whom God whispered over, "Rise, for I have chosen him." The story of David the shepherd is not just about ancient Israel. It is about the secret ways God moves in every age. He bypasses palaces to anoint fields. He looks past the crown to see the heart. Think of Abraham Lincoln, born in a log cabin, rising to lead a torn nation. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., the son of a preacher who carried a dream larger than any monument. They were Davids in their own time, shepherds who became voices of destiny. And perhaps you too have felt unseen, forgotten among those who seem stronger, smarter, more favored. Yet hidden in the quiet of your own life, the same God still delights to raise the overlooked. This truth heals our insecurity, replacing despair with the possibility that being unseen by men means being prepared by heaven. Comment below if you've ever felt unseen, but sensed deep within that your story is not over, that your field is only the beginning. From this forgotten boy, we turn to a king in torment, and the song that brought light to his darkened spirit. The troubled king and the healing harp. Saul, once anointed, had become a prisoner of his own fears. Darkness clouded his soul. Rage and despair choked the joy of his throne. Yet in the palace halls, when David's fingers touched the strings of his harp, something extraordinary happened. Peace entered where madness reigned, light pierced the shadows, and the king found rest. This was not mere music. It was a sacred weapon, a melody carrying the breath of God. Across history, music has carried that same power. Enslaved people in America sang spirituals that lifted their souls above chains, reminding them of a freedom no man could steal. Soldiers in the trenches clung to hymns that wrapped them with courage when death pressed close. Even today, when your heart is heavy, A single song can break the weight of despair and remind you that hope still sings. David's harp teaches us that God equips his chosen not first with swords, but with gifts of healing, comfort, and inspiration. Your voice, your art, your kindness may be the harp in someone else's storm. Never underestimate the tools God has placed in your hands. They may look ordinary, but they carry extraordinary power when touched by his Spirit. And so, while Saul's torment was eased, a new conflict rose outside the palace walls, a terror so great it froze an entire nation. The rise of Goliath, fear that paralyzes a nation. From the valley of Elah emerged a shadow towering above men. Goliath of Gath, wrapped in bronze, his spear like a weaver's beam, his voice like thunder rolling across mountains. For 40 days he mocked, taunted, and cursed, and Israel trembled in silence. Though armed with swords, the warriors' hearts were chained by fear, proving once more that fear enslaves more tightly than iron. The image of Goliath is not confined to history. Today our giants take other shapes, crushing debt that steals our peace, addictions that whisper we will never be free, diseases that shake our families, failures that convince us to stop trying. These giants, though unseen, stand just as tall, demanding surrender. But here lies the lesson. Giants thrive not on their own power, but on our silence, our surrender, our belief that they cannot be overcome. What giant has silenced your courage? What voice has shouted louder than your faith? Remember, fear always seeks to paralyze before it seeks to destroy. Israel stood frozen. But in the quiet, a shepherd was walking toward the valley, carrying not fear, but faith. The story shifts now, from a nation bound in terror to a boy who refuses to let the blasphemy of a giant drown out the name of the living God. David's indignation, faith that refuses silence. When the shepherd boy stepped into the valley of Elah and heard the giant mock the name of the living God, something ignited inside him. His brothers tried to silence him, mocking his youth, accusing him of arrogance. Yet faith has always drawn ridicule before it brings victory. David could not endure the insult hurled at heaven, and he refused to let the voice of blasphemy be the last word. This holy indignation is the same fire that burned in the prophets who stood alone against kings, the same resolve that fueled reformers who challenged corrupt systems, the same courage that rises in every generation when truth is trampled underfoot. Have you ever felt that burning inside when silence seemed easier, but your soul cried out for justice, for honor, for truth? That is the seed of David within you, proof that faith cannot stay quiet when God is mocked. The lesson here is timeless. Courage is not born on the battlefield, but in the moment we decide that dishonor cannot stand unchallenged. Comment below if you've ever faced ridicule for standing up for what you believed in, because your story may inspire someone else to rise against their own Goliath. This courage leads us to David's testimony, the proof that faith is not wishful thinking, but trust forged in fire. The testimony of the lion and the bear. Before he ever saw the shadow of Goliath, David had already walked through battles that tested his heart. Alone in the fields, when lions and bears came for the flock, he fought with his bare hands, striking down beasts that sought to destroy what was entrusted to him. These scars became his testimony, his living proof that the God who delivered him then would deliver him again. Faith is not built on dreams, but on memories of battles survived. Think about your own life. every heartbreak you endured, every failure you rose from, every night you thought would break you. But dawn still came. Those are your lions and your bears, and they are the silent victories preparing you for greater wars. In modern life, small victories may look like overcoming debt one payment at a time, breaking the grip of addiction one day at a time, or simply choosing hope over despair when everything feels lost. Each of these victories is a weapon you carry forward, proof that you can face the giant standing in your path. The lesson is clear. Never despise the smaller struggles, for they are training grounds for destiny. Your scars are not signs of weakness. They are reminders that survival is already in your story. And so David, standing before a king and a nation, declared not fear, but faith, knowing his past battles guaranteed his future victory. This testimony carried him to the moment of decision, to wear the armor of another, or to trust what God had already placed in his hands, rejecting Saul's armor, trusting God's provision. When Saul, desperate for hope, offered David his royal armor, it seemed like wisdom. The bronze, the sword, the shield, these were the symbols of power in the eyes of men. Yet when David tried to walk in them, they weighed him down. He realized quickly that he could not fight today's battle using another man's methods. So he laid aside the armor, choosing instead the sling he had practiced with in the fields, and 5 smooth stones from the brook. Here lies one of the greatest lessons in the story. God's provision is always enough. You do not need the weapons of another to win your battle. You need only to use the tools He has already given you. Think of entrepreneurs who rejected traditional paths and built empires with nothing but vision and persistence. Think of voices that changed history, not by echoing others, but by speaking their own truth. Even in your life, the sling may be your words, your creativity, your faith, your perseverance. Too often we compare ourselves to others, longing for their strength, their platform, their armor, forgetting that God delights in using what is already in our hands. What is the sling God has given you? What skill, passion, or testimony do you carry that looks small to others but holds the power to bring giants down? The transition from armor to sling reminds us that the victory ahead is not about might or appearance, but about trust. Trust in God's provision, trust in the gifts within us, trust that faith will do what fear insists is impossible. And with sling and stone, David stepped into the valley, not in the strength of men, but in the strength of the Lord. The battle belongs to the Lord. When David stepped forward, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Goliath thundered curses, waving sword and spear like towers of iron, his shadow stretching across the valley. Yet David's voice rang out with a fire greater than fear. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. That single declaration shattered the silence, because it was not just the words of a shepherd boy, it was the roar of heaven through human lips. The sling swung, the stone flew, and the giant who mocked God collapsed like a broken idol. One moment of faith crushed 40 days of terror. This scene is more than history, it is revelation. It tells us that the strength of man is fragile when it stands against the power of God. How many times in life have you faced your own Goliath, towering problems screaming you cannot win, only to discover that one act of faith overturned the impossible? The lesson burns clear. Victory is never about the size of your weapon, but the strength of your trust. Comment below. What stone of faith have you used to silence a giant in your life? Your story may be the encouragement someone else desperately needs. From this victory, we turn to the aftermath, where joy and envy collided in the heart of Israel. Aftermath, triumph, and the seeds of jealousy. The valley echoed with victory songs. Israel surged forward in triumph, and David's name soared like a banner across the land. The boy who was forgotten became the hero everyone celebrated. Yet while the people rejoiced, a darker seed was sown in Saul's heart: envy. The cheers of the crowd, once reserved for the king, now belonged to the shepherd who dared to believe. Here we glimpse a truth as old as time. Success attracts not only honor, but jealousy. How often in life do victories bring both applause and resentment? Athletes who break records face critics who seek to tear them down. Innovators who change industries are envied by rivals who crave their downfall. Even friendships can fracture when one rises higher than the other. David's triumph became his trial, for the very king he soothed with music now burned with suspicion. The lesson is sobering. Every victory carries a cost, and every success becomes a test of humility, patience, and endurance. Yet within that tension lies growth, for the storms of jealousy can forge the character of a leader. This moment prepares us for the larger legacy of faith that outlasts both fear and envy. The legacy of faith over fear. The story of David and Goliath did not end with a fallen giant or a jealous king. It became a timeless parable carried across centuries. Each generation has its giants, and each heart must choose faith or fear. This is why the story still resonates, from pulpits to classrooms, from whispered prayers to public speeches. It is more than ancient history. It is a living reminder that God partners with the willing, not the mighty. Consider the civil rights marchers who faced batons with hymns, or families who rebuild after storms with nothing but hope and perseverance. Their giants fell because their faith stood firm. The legacy of David is not about one victory, but about a lifetime of choosing faith over fear, obedience over pride, trust over despair. This is the invitation to every listener. Your giants are real, but so is your God. The lesson is eternal. Giants fall not by chance, but by courage, rooted in something greater than yourself. If you have ever faced fear and chosen to rise anyway, you are walking in David's footsteps. Share your thoughts below. Do you believe faith can still slay giants today? This reflection carries us naturally into the closing benediction, where hope becomes not just a story, but a call for every heart to stand, sling in hand, and believe that the battle still belongs to the Lord. And so the valley grew quiet, the dust of battle settling over the fallen giant, and the boy with the sling stood tall not because of his strength, but because of his faith. This is the image that echoes across time, the moment when fear was silenced, when weakness became strength, when the impossible bowed before the living God. It is not just the story of David and Goliath. It is the story of every soul that has ever faced a towering shadow and dared to believe that victory was possible. The giant lay still, but the lesson was alive, whispering through generations. The battle belongs not to the mighty, but to the faithful. If you have ever stood trembling before a challenge that seemed too vast, you know this story is about you. The giant may not carry a spear or wear armor, but it comes in other forms: an overwhelming debt that suffocates your peace, a disease that attacks your body, a heartbreak that drains your will, a failure that mocks your dreams. Each giant shouts the same lie: you cannot win. But David's sling tells a different truth. Giants fall when faith refuses to back down. Your sling may not be leather and stone. It may be your voice, your persistence, your prayer whispered through tears. It may be the resilience that keeps you walking when every step feels like breaking. Whatever it is, know this: the same God who empowered a shepherd boy still stands beside you. History has proven it again and again. Think of Abraham Lincoln, mocked for his plain appearance, yet rising to heal a broken nation. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., a preacher's son whose dream toppled walls of injustice. Think of ordinary families rebuilding after storms, communities rising from ashes, survivors who turned their scars into testimonies. These are modern Davids, each armed not with power, but with faith, courage, and the relentless refusal to let fear define them. Their giants fell, and so can yours. The story is not just ancient scripture. It is a living call to arms for every person who dares to believe that weakness in God's hands is stronger than the strength of the world. But here lies the question that burns. What giant stands in your valley today? Is it the fear of failure, the weight of comparison, the silence of feeling unseen, unheard, forgotten? Comment below and share the name of your giant, because speaking it is the first step towards seeing it fall. And when you share, you may inspire someone else who is watching, someone who feels alone, someone who needs to know that others too are standing before giants. This is how stories become chains of courage, one testimony sparking another, until the valley itself is filled not with fear, but with the sound of faith rising. This story is not just meant to be heard, it is meant to be lived. The sling is already in your hand, the stones already at your feet, the presence of God already with you. Do not wait for armor that does not fit. Do not long for weapons you were never meant to wield. Use what you have right now and trust that heaven will magnify it. That is the mystery of grace. God delights in turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, the forgotten into the chosen, the overlooked into the unforgettable. That is why this story still breathes, because it reminds us that every valley can become a place of victory if we dare to step forward. And so, as the echoes of this tale reach your heart, let it not just be another story you pass by. Let it be a mirror, showing you that your fear is not final, your weakness is not permanent, and your giant is not undefeatable. The battle belongs to the Lord, and if he was faithful to David, he will be faithful to you. Do not let the valley define you. Let your courage in the valley define the story others will remember. Your life itself may become the testimony someone else needs to face their own Goliath. If this message has stirred something within you, if you felt even for a moment the spark of hope return, I invite you to carry this light forward. Like this video, share it. Let it ripple into the lives of others who may be standing silent before their own giants. And if you feel this story has given strength to your soul, consider supporting in whatever way you feel led, not out of duty, but as a seed of gratitude that allows more stories of faith, healing, and courage to be told. Every little act of encouragement, every word of support is priceless to me. It fuels the work. It keeps the light burning. It makes it possible to continue bringing messages that lift hearts out of despair and into hope. Together, we are more than listeners. We are a community of faith, a family of courage. Your presence here matters. Your comments matter. Your story matters. Giants may roar, but they cannot silence a people who believe. As you step back into your life after this video, remember the shepherd boy in the valley. Remember the sling and the stone. Remember the God who never fails. Let these truths not only inspire you, but transform you, until your own valley becomes the ground of your greatest victory. And when that victory comes, share it. Let the world know that giants still fall, that faith still rises, that the story of David is alive in us today. For the battle is not yours alone, it is the Lord's. And when the dust clears, when the silence falls, you too will stand where David once stood, victorious not because of might, but because of faith. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this video has touched your heart, if it has brought healing to your spirit or light into a dark place, I welcome you to join me on this path. Subscribe, stay connected, be part of a community that believes in faith over fear, hope over despair, light over darkness. Together we can keep telling stories that heal, inspire, and remind the world that no giant is too great when God is on our side. With all my heart, I thank you.